Today on Locked On Canadiens, the Habs beat the Canucks in overtime and they continue to be in the mix.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to episode 1218 of Locked On Canadiens. We thank everyone for making us your first listen of the day every day. As you know, we're free and available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every day. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets if you win or lose your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Laura Sab, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined, as always, by the wonderful Ian Boisvert. Ian, the Canadiens have touched a wildcard spot, and for the next 21-ish hours, they will be in a playoff spot until the games of Tuesday night change everything for them. How do we feel on this Monday night?
I would imagine the same way the players do. We obviously record these the night before you guys hear them, and the Canadiens are going to go to bed tonight in their own beds after a game, which is not something they've done in a long time, with firm grasp on a playoff spot. They hold that wild card spot. We're going to touch on that a little bit more in our second segment, but it's the first time since like the bubble season where this late in the year we're looking at a Canadiens team that is in, I hate this if the playoffs started today sort of thing. I always hate that, but we'll touch. There's something funny involved in that as well. But if the playoffs started today, the Canadiens would be in it, and we'd be talking about them, trying to upset a division winner as a wildcard team. So, I mean, it's fun to watch hockey that matters again. I think, to me, like that's the biggest takeaway I have so far.
Absolutely. And so for our first segment, we're going to talk about the game as a whole. In the second segment, we're going to talk a little bit about that wild card spot being in the mix, storylines and fun stuff. And then in our final segment, we are going to praise Guhle and Hutson. They had, among other Habs, they had amazing games tonight. But I also just really quickly want to remind everybody that there's a link in the show notes, both on audio and video, to check if you had entered the contest within the deadline, which was December 25th. Just make sure that you are listed on there because we will be doing the draw on Wednesday night, Eastern time. Wednesday, I would say about 8 o'clock Eastern time. So please reach out to us. I did get a couple of typo notifications, but if you are missing from there, please let us know because we want to make sure you're all accounted for. All right, let's get into the game. I'm going to start with the underlying numbers. The Canadiens were magnificent. I also do really quickly want to point out that when we did the preview for this game, we expected Patrik Laine to be back because he was ill. He's not injured. And we expected Quinn Hughes to be out because he was week to week at that point. So it seemed to be kind of a game time decision for the Vancouver Canucks to put Quinn Hughes in. And Patrik Laine ended up not playing. And I think it's interesting, and we will get into that a little bit over the course of this week. We do have a couple of episodes with no games. We're going to talk about the call-up situation, why the Canadiens do what they do, lineups, et cetera. But in the meantime, I felt that the Canadiens had their work cut out for them. And the Vancouver Canucks game, more than any other game, worried me because I felt that the dysfunction on the Canucks would have rubbed off on the Canadiens and they were going to get sucked into a game full of shenanigans. Now, I'm not fully on board with the Canucks. I'm not going to say that game was shenanigan-free, but I am going to say that the Canadiens were dominant. And they were dominant in every moment. They were dominant all across every situation. They were dominant. It was just like the Vancouver Canucks they scored a lot of goals, and we'll talk a little bit about Samuel Montembeault as well. But the team as a whole played so well. Like they controlled that game. They took over that game. They did not allow Vancouver to breathe in that game. And every time they did, the puck ended up in the net. We do need to talk about that, but I want to keep the vibes positive. What are your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, I thought the first period they went up early in that game. And, my key to the game before, on the episode before this one was the crowd. The crowd is going to be huge in that game. And the crowd was loud to start that game. And the Canadiens gave them stuff to be loud about. Caulfield scoring immediately on a great feed and a great play from Uri Slafkovsky, who bounced back in a big way against Vancouver. But on top of that, Kaiden Guhle was hitting everything that moved. Jaden Struble joined in on that. He started throwing the body around. I thought that was pretty surprising to me. And it's not that the Canadiens can't play that way. It's just that they don't often do. I think it's nice when they can on occasion play that way. And I'm wondering if Marty talks to, I mean, they all know with the standings, they're going to tell us they don't, but they knew going into that game because of the result of the Pittsburgh game before that if they won and some other things fell in place, they'd be in a playoff spot at the end of the night. And I think they came out in that game with a playoff type mentality of take no prisoners. We're putting guys into the wall. I mean, in Kaiden Guhle's case, he was putting guys into the ice, leveling guys in the neutral zone. So I loved their start so much. The fact that they were tied after one, they had one bad shift and the puck ended up in their net. That was sort of the story of the night early on, especially early in the second period. The first half of the second period was not very good, and it didn't matter because they ended up winning anyway. That to me is what's, really exciting, is not that they're, from start to finish playing perfect hockey. Yeah, they're making mistakes. Every hockey team does. They have downshifts. Every hockey team does. But those downshifts no longer define their games. They're able to come back and score big goals. What's defining this game is the play of a bunch of really important players on this hockey team and the fact that they picked up 2 more points and are just completely rolling right now. So I think the Canadiens are very happy. They're probably not happy with the way the second period started, but they have to be ecstatic about how their game has evolved over the last month in general.
I think what's key about the way the Canadiens played tonight is that usually when you have so many hits, it's because you're behind the play and you're
Yeah.
trying to separate the opponents from the puck. But what I felt they did is they came out like those teams that we want them to emulate. Like those teams like Florida, those teams like, I hate to say it, but it's true, the Boston Bruins of in their contending days.
Yeah.
Is they come out, they're skilled, they dominate the game, but they're also really just physically tough. And that's something that, our listeners are not ashamed to tell us they want all the time. That's what they want from this Canadiens team. They don't want to see softness. They want to see them play hard. And to me, I think that this was just another dimension to them saying, all right, we need to be hard to play against. How do we do that? And I felt that the hits were well chosen and well placed. And I thought that Kaiden Guhle, he really looked like somebody you had freed or unleashed, right? It looked like he had been playing with constraints and when you remove that, whatever it was, it could have been just all mental in his head or whatever, right? And it looked like, he's like, I'm allowed to be me and I'm going to be the most me I possibly can be. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later as well with Kaiden Guhle, but I felt that the team as a whole, they showed up and they played well despite their mistakes. It used to be they would make those mistakes and then those mistakes would just get compounded over the course of the rest of the game, right? Like they have
Right.
one bad shift at the end of the first or, in the middle of the second, and then the third is a disaster. And we've seen that so many times this season. Now it's not like that. It's like, oh, they made a mistake. That's fine. They're going to figure it out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I loved your point on the hits because I had the same thought and I didn't end up putting it out there because I thought it would make it sound like I was just whining about the Canucks. But the Canadiens, when they were throwing hits early on, it was to separate guys from the puck with authority. When the Canucks were making hits like Tyler Myers and all, and what was it, Besser? No, it was Miller behind the net on Hutson. The puck was gone. It didn't do anything except haha, I got you. The hits the Canadiens were throwing, especially the Struble ones and the Guhle ones, the guys had the puck and they're finishing their checks on guys to get the puck away from them, and it worked. So I like that over the course of this stretch, they're back to the beginning of that road trip and even before that to now, they can kind of play any way they want to. Any way that the opposing team wants to be able to play, Montreal's going to try to match you. I think that's what's kind of becoming their identity. We talked early on this season about what is this team? When teams come in and play Montreal or Montreal shows up at your building, who's this team supposed to be? And I think Montreal's just going to try to, do what you do, but better. I think that's kind of what they're trying to do. The work that they put in, especially those lower the lower lines, like it makes it really tough for other teams to break out and come down the ice against Montreal. I think, again, it was another strong night from the third and fourth lines. I think people need to stop freaking out about Michael Pezzetta on the second line, because after the second period, did you even see him? I didn't check, but I don't think he touched the ice late in the game at all.
Yeah, I mean, he's just there for, waiting for Patrick Laine to recover.
He's just
and
there.
He's just there.
Yeah.
I also think it's really cute that you said they're going to sleep in their own beds tonight. I think they're going to go out and party first.
Well, I didn't say that. I didn't say they were immediately going home, Michelle Therrien style, the cookies and milk and going to bed. I think that's how they end the evening, however.
Yes.
Except
right.
Carrier. I don't know where he's living. He hasn't been in Montreal long, the team or the city. He
Probably.
hasn't spent much time in, living there. So
we don't know what he's up to, but all right. In our next segment, as you know, the Montreal Canadiens now touch a wild card spot. They're literally in the second wild card spot. And we're not expecting this at all. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, how the rest of the season could play out, some fun storylines, and that's coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. First, I want to tell you, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Honestly, for me, it's so much fun, and the NFL playoffs are really when I get into it, and betting on the teams is really, really fun. FanDuel makes it so easy. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and us. The Montreal Canadiens are not just in the mix. They are also in a playoff spot. They are in the second wildcard spot. Obviously, Tuesday night's games are going to change that because it is a very tight little race there. It's a log jam. And the Montreal Canadiens are going to have to contend with the likes of the Ottawa Senators, the Pittsburgh Penguins. I don't remember who else I was looking at when they were in that range. I just saw Canadiens in the wildcard spot, and then I just forgot about everyone else. I don't know that I would have said that at the beginning of this season. I don't know that I would have said that this would have happened at all, particularly in January, right? It's easy to say, the first 2 weeks of the season where there's only 8 games played across the division that the Canadiens are top of the
when they shut out the Leafs in the first night of the season, and we were like, we're winning the cup. That's it. It's over. And then after that, it was literally over. And now we're so bad.
It was over.
It was over.
All right. So what does this mean?
I think I'm going to do something that I don't think people who talk about sports do enough, and say that I was wrong. Over the summer, we said that I wanted a top 3 pick more than a playoff entry. I was wrong. I want this really bad now. I want this more than I think I've wanted anything in a very long time. This team it's not just that they're winning games, right? It's not just that the bounces are going their way and the puck is going into the net, and they're just picking up points for the sake of it. The way that they have redefined the way that they play has made me think that the playoffs are not just aspirational at this point, but that if they were to get in, I don't think they're getting their butts kicked. I don't know that they advance past a team they'd have to play one of the division winners. But I think they would put up a fight. I think that they would put up a legitimate fight, because the way that they play is very conducive to winning games in the playoffs. They beat you on the wall. They beat you down low. Their bottom lines are contributing in a real way. They can roll 4 lines. These are all things that playoff teams want to be able to do effectively. So going back to when we were we want the high pick, I'd rather have that than getting into the playoffs and getting our teeth kicked in. No, I want the playoffs for these guys. They want it too. I want it more than any of us, if we can be honest with ourselves. But I want it now. I want it more than I wanted the other thing.
I just want to like really quickly put to you, please imagine Lane Hutson in the playoffs.
Dude, watching him and Quinn Hughes play against each other was like that. Like, if you were just a neutral hockey fan, you should have been watching that game. That was so fun to watch.
It was. All right. So if the playoffs started today, I love playing this game because like for so long it's been like if the playoffs started today, the Canadiens wouldn't be like remotely close to a playoff spot. But if the playoffs started today, Ian, who would the Habs be playing?
If the playoffs started today, we'd all be very confused because it's January. No, they would be playing the Washington Capitals. They'd be playing the higher of the two divisional seeds, being the second wildcard seed. Um, Ironically enough, that is who Montreal plays on Friday. They head into Washington to play the Capitals before immediately coming back home to play Dallas. The NHL schedule is stupid. It makes no sense. But that's a team that Montreal had 2 games this year that I kind of looked at as statement losses for them. The first one, they took a lead into the third period and blew it. And the second one, or maybe it was the first one, they
No,
were
the first
within a
one was
goal or
throwing up
tied.
all over themselves.
Yeah. And then the second one, similar situation. They went into the third period in a close game with an opportunity to win it and completely fell apart. And now it's so funny. I wonder if those, losses like those have kind of galvanized them, because now they're not only are they not losing games in the third period, that's where they're winning them. Like, Montreal was down by 2 goals in this game against Vancouver and had the lead in the third period. Cole Caulfield threw a little bit of a little baby tantrum and cost them a goal, but they had a lead in the third period and they ended up winning, so it doesn't matter. I'm not giving him crap. Leave me alone.
Yeah, his vibes are usually really good. It's like it's rare that you see him like he's always passionate in like a lighthearted and fun way. But for him to do that, like I think it's a new dimension, right? Like it's a new side to him. But I'm not going to get too upset. I think for me, the reality is that there are teams ahead of them that need to make the playoffs. The Montreal Canadiens currently do not quote unquote need to make the playoffs, right? Like jobs are not on the line for the Montreal Canadiens, but for the Detroit Red Wings, the Buffalo Sabres, the Ottawa Senators, right? They need to make the playoffs. Like it's a statement. And there are so few spots to go around, right? Like you're looking at who's in a playoff spot on both in the Atlantic and the Metro. And you're looking at who's competing for those wild card spots. And unless there's like an epic collapse by a team like Toronto or I'm going to say a New York Rangers style collapse, like from another team by like, even Washington, you never know. Like we've seen this before. It happened to Ottawa. It happened to the Montreal Canadiens. They went from first to a disaster in the last few games of the season. Unless there's an epic collapse, like the Canadiens are going to be fighting really hard. And the reality is that these other teams are going to make more drastic changes than the Canadiens would. If they find themselves like, looking on the outside, looking in, right? Like Ottawa has to make the playoffs. Detroit has to make the playoffs. Like, Buffalo, I don't even know what Buffalo has to do at this point. Like, I feel like at this point, like the team needs to be sold.
That's first and foremost. Guhle sell the team. The Alex Tuck can't do anything about that. It's not his fault.
Exactly. So for me, the Canadiens, it's going to be really hard. So I don't want to prematurely celebrate. But I also think that the rest of the season for us as Habs fans is going to be a little bit of a nail biter, right? Like today, we're enjoying this. We're going to enjoy this all the way up until like, let's say the end of February. But when reality sets in and we see that every day they're in or out of a wild card spot, right? Like we start counting games in hand. We start counting magic numbers. Like it's going to come down to nail biting by the time April rolls around, right? So I want us to be realistic, but I also don't want us to stop enjoying these wins if they come and you see that, Detroit is like a few points ahead of them, or Ottawa's a few points ahead of them, or Pittsburgh is like 3 points ahead of them. I want us to still enjoy these wins, even if that's happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 1,000%. 2 things on this. One, stop telling people to Olay. I know I'm in the minority on this. I don't care if they're up by 1 with 20 minutes left in the game. These people pay a lot of money. Shut up. Let them do what they want. So, and that applies to the rest of how we experience this team, right? Like we should be allowed to enjoy this, even though they haven't locked up a playoff spot. It's January. We're almost at the midway point of the season. This was game 40.
Yeah.
And to the point of like, we're going to be like schedule watching and, like watching out of town scoreboards and counting games at hand. Good. Because the only other time we were doing that was to make sure Arizona was picking up a bunch of garbage time goals to win games so Montreal could win a lottery pick. Like all of that garbage was for this. I think people forget that. They forget that like we're supposed to end up here at some point. They're getting there. So it's nice that that's happening. I will enjoy the white knuckling our way through this. It's great. This is what sports is about, man. Watch the games. This is what it's about.
And it makes things exciting. It makes every game compelling. It makes us more invested in every game, right? I can't say that in November everybody was excited to watch this team. Like I've had multiple friends, like Habs fans, Montrealers, just tell us like, I don't watch the games. I listen to you guys because I support you, but like I don't watch the games because they're not like they suck, right? So now everybody's going to be watching the games. Like there's a reason to watch. There's a reason to be invested. There's a reason to live and die by every goal. And I'm very excited about that. It's just that I just want to say that like all of these incremental improvements the Canadiens are making, we can't discount or ignore them because somebody else is in the wild card spot ahead of them.
Yep. There's a lot of teams in this league. They keep adding more of them. That's always going to be the case. So Montreal should be stoked. Fans should be stoked.
I, for one, am stoked to talk about Kaiden Guhle, Guhle and Hutson, and others. Like they weren't the only ones in this win. We're gonna give some guys some praise, and that's coming up in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is the subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Plus, with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. All right, let's talk about our favorite things. Guhle and Hutson. Literally, like he how many points did he have this game? 3 points?
He should have had like 18.
Yeah.
Like I think it was the two, there was two like tap-ins on the back door that I think one was Doc on the power play and the other was Gallagher, that I think Hutson put both of them there. He definitely put the Gallagher one there. Like he could have easily had 5 points tonight. And like even that's just part of the story with him, because it's not just about the points. Like even the plays where they don't score, he's creating havoc. The penalty at the end of regulation, right? We all thought it was on something that they did to Guhle and Hutson because it literally took two Canucks to wrestle the puck away from him. He's like trying to pull his stick away from him. He's getting held. He's getting interfered with. We thought it was him that drew the penalty. It wasn't. I think Höglander just like decked Anderson for no reason.
Yeah.
But
then he had the audacity to argue it.
Yeah. He goes to the box. You could read his lips. He said, "That's soft." And we watched it like he just ran over a guy who didn't have the puck. I can understand it too, because the Canucks got away with that all night. So to finally call it in the third period, I would be a little upset too if that was suddenly allowed now.
Me too. Sorry, you were saying about Guhle and Hutson. I just the audacity of him. Anyways.
No, exactly. But like it's those moments where there was no goal scored on that play, but him shimmying down the left wall created chaos. Like he just creates chaos whenever he has the puck. He recognized too that Höglander didn't have a stick, and he said, "Oh, I can just go by you, and if you grab me, you take a penalty." Like he recognized that. Now they didn't call that penalty, but the logic was there.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like it's like his brain moves so fast, and unlike a lot of players that can't like keep up with them with that body. Like his body moves as fast as his brain.
Yeah. I love
just
how also after he scored, the Bell Center played Life in the Fast Lane. That was pretty cool. That was his first home goal. That was the first goal he scored at the Bell Center. So I mean, pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, he scores billions of points. It's just
Yeah.
the goals, not so much.
It's also
But
got to be a
really
pretty good
really
24
good for
hours
him.
to be a Hudson. His brother just won gold at the World Juniors. Like the Hudson brothers are kind of just, it's their world. We're just living in it.
Yeah. I also think it's really cute how they support each other. But I do want to say that with Guhle and Hutson, I was not expecting this much this soon. I was always expecting a lot from him. I was always really hyped about him, but I did not think that at this point in the season, right? We're 42 games into his NHL career. Like I did not
Yep.
expect this from him yet. I thought this
No.
would be like, season 3, Guhle and Hutson.
I expected something of the offense to be there, not to this extent, but certainly some of it. But I also expected him to just have some nights where he's been completely manhandled, and like that just hasn't happened,
Yeah.
which is encouraging and also rather surprising that this, I mean, this Victorian child is just dominating grown men every night, and it's wild to me that we haven't seen him just get like, torched. It just hasn't happened.
It hasn't happened yet. But
No.
no, and I really hope it doesn't. Like it's not like we're wishing it upon him. But like I did feel too with Vancouver, like Tyler Myers, like that useless tree. Like, doesn't it seem like the exact kind of game where he would have done something extremely egregious against Guhle and Hutson, and then like we would be talking injuries right now?
Yeah, instead he got a breakaway somehow and just drilled the posts. That was one of the weirdest moments I can remember, was an 18-foot tall man getting a breakaway at the Bell Center. Like that was unbelievable. We do also have to talk about Kaiden Guhle though. I
Yes,
mean,
Guhle Nation rise up.
yeah, Guhle Nation rise up. Kay, I hope you're having an absolutely stellar day thinking about all the guys that Kaiden Guhle put on the ground. I love that. I loved the type of game he played on Monday night, right? He scored. That seems like an afterthought, doesn't it? Because it wasn't like he kind of just threw the puck at the net. But like when you're having a night like Kaiden Guhle was having, that puck finds its way in more often than not, right? Like
He
I
was
think of like
everywhere.
the goals Kirby Dach has scored, right? They haven't been great goals, but he's been playing well. The puck just goes in now.
We didn't even talk about that power play goal.
No.
All right, let's really quickly, because I know we're running out of time. We got to get to trivia, but okay, let's really quickly finish up on Kaiden Guhle. Kaiden Guhle, for me, the most important thing was he picked his spots. Everything he did was intelligent. And I think that's so important because that is an underrated part of his game. And before he arrived in Montreal, that was an underrated part of his game. Like he was very physical, but the fact that he's so smart about picking those spots, and like today, like it just felt like he was thriving, right?
Yeah.
In that game. Kirby Dach, another good game. There were a couple of times where I was like, is Yuri Slavkovsky back or not? But like he was very present in this game.
Yeah.
I will say.
Yeah, Slap. I mean, he set up the first goal. He had a couple where he put goals on guys' sticks and they just, either Lankinen made a great save or they missed the net. Kirby Dach, though, him and Alex Newhook, while they were on the ice at 5-on-5, they controlled scoring chances 11-1. That's just like everyone's complaining, oh, take Pizzetto off that line, blah, blah, blah. Guys, it clearly doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter.
When Patrick Laine comes back, those scoring chances might turn into goals.
Yeah, maybe Laine will score a 5-on-5 goal. Hasn't happened yet. So yeah, we are only a half-hour show. We are daily, but we are a half-hour show. There's too much good stuff from this game to cram into one episode. So thankfully, we have the next few days without games to be able to talk about how great this game was.
Yes. And we will be talking, we definitely want to spend a little bit more time on Guhle and Hutson along with Kirby Dach's, we'll try and get through the week without talking about Mike Matheson. We'll see if it works.
Laura, we almost did it. We almost did it. I don't have the counter, but now it needs to go baak to 0. We almost made it.
I mentioned his name, but I didn't say anything about him.
I was just thinking too, as you said that, we haven't said anything about Mike Matheson yet.
But it doesn't count because I didn't say any opinions about him.
No.
I didn't say anything about it, so it doesn't count.
But
we'll
leave that for tomorrow's show. You'll have to tune in to hear us talk about that.
Yes. All right. It is time for trivia.
All right. Go over yesterday's question first. Follow the player. Montreal, Anaheim, Vancouver, St. Louis, Pittsburgh. Laura, you ended up getting this before we hopped off the call. Who is this player?
It is Maxime Lapierre.
It is Maxime Lapierre. One of my, like, early on in my Canadiens fandom, one of my favorite guys. I really enjoyed watching Max Lapierre.
Guy.
Memeable guy, just a disturber, just a guy who likes to get in and mess stuff up. I really appreciated him.
Yeah.
Marku888 was first on YouTube with that, but I will also give a shout out to Abon Post, who also ended up getting it. So congrats to the both of you for remembering a guy. All right, let's remember another one. Follow this career path: Colorado, Calgary, Montreal, Tampa Bay, Calgary, Colorado, Arizona. Colorado, Calgary, Montreal, Tampa Bay, Calgary, Colorado, Arizona. I'll give everybody one hint, although I don't know how much of a hint it is. This player was my first ever Montreal Canadiens jersey. So that'll place the era for you. Colorado, Calgary, Montreal, Tampa Bay, Calgary, Colorado, Arizona. Good luck. If you have the answer, put it in the YouTube comments. Email it to us. Do whatever with it. We'll find it. We'll shout you out on the next episode of the show.
Yes, we will. And speaking of that, in order for you to get the next show, please make sure you are subscribed to this podcast on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available everywhere, as we said, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find us all over social media where we are posting at Locked On Canadiens. We're Locked On Canadiens on TikTok. We're Locked On Canadiens on Instagram. We're Locked On Canadiens on Blue Sky. And our email address is Locked On Canadiens. Please send us mailbag questions this Friday for this Friday's episode. And you can find us all over social media as well. I am at The Active Stick, and Ian is at Maybe It's Ian. Thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you tomorrow with more good vibes.